working with vector graphics in InDesign. So a vector graphic consists of anchor points and line segments that we call paths. We typically create those vector graphics in Adobe Illustrator. Now, vector graphics are resolution independent, meaning that I can scale to any size with no loss in quality. So what happens when I bring them into InDesign is really some fun things. Now let's look at how we can place these vector graphics or Illustrator graphics into InDesign. There are two methods. One is the traditional method that we've been doing all along with the file and a place. I am first going to bring in some text because I want you to see how this interacts with a body of text. So I get my loaded cursor here and I'm going to just click in the top corner to create a text box that fits my margin guides. Notice though if I scroll down here that I have the overset text icon, meaning that it doesn't all fit. That's okay for what we're going to experiment with in this lesson. So now I'm going to deselect this box. If I were to have left it selected when I went to File and Place and located my graphic, it would have replaced the text with that new graphic because it thought, well, you have it selected. That's the frame you want it to be in. So you have to make sure you deselect in order to go back and do a File and Place. And this time I'm going to take this Illustrator file.ai. Now you can also bring in a PDF. A PDF actually will preserve the layers in InDesign. You could bring in another general vector graphic format like an EPS, encapsulated PostScript file. So there are many options here. So because InDesign is vector based, our vectors act a little bit different than what we use or what we see when we use graphics. So here's my loaded cursor and I'm just going to click to put this illustration right here in the middle. So at first you can see that the text, there's no interaction going on. It's just floating on top. So with it selected, oops, and it looks like I moved it. With it selected, I moved the inside part. Let's go to our text wrap box. Now we can do some wraps up here in my control panel. However, I'm not able to change a specific setting that I want. So I can do this by the bounding box, right? And that goes to the bounding box. Or I can do this wrapping tightly around the object. However, it doesn't know where the object is yet, so my contour option setting is what I have to change, and this is what you can't set up here when you're using those quick keys. And I want this to be detect edges because InDesign is smart enough to detect the edges of a vector graphic. And so I'm going to link this, even though this is kind of interesting. I'm going to increase, and you can see how the text is moving out. So I can increase the spacing around it, and you can see the text interact with the graphic. Now because this is an irregular shape, if I were to go back to my bounding box, then I would be able to apply in all directions, but because this is an organic shape, I just need to change one setting there. So that's one method. Let's just slide this guy over to the side, and let's do this again. The second method that I can bring an Illustrator graphic or a vector graphic into InDesign is actually to go back to Illustrator, the program that I created this in, and you can see that these are all different shapes, right? When I click on it, they're all different shapes. Let's just select the whole entire illustration with all those different components, and this time copy and paste. So either a Control-C or a copy, Control-C, and I'm going to go to InDesign, and I'm going to make sure nothing else is selected, and I'm going to do a Control-V or edit and paste, and here it is. Now this method actually is pretty unique because now this is fully editable in InDesign. This becomes an InDesign object. So this is great if you want to do some alterations. I just go to my direct selection tool and I can do alterations on the lines. Look at this. I could make his little whisker be longer. See me drag that out. I could select and change the color of something. Let's bring our color. If I wanted his hat to be not as bright, or if maybe I wanted his hat to be a different color altogether. All right, so I can do some really fun things now in InDesign by modifying my colors, my objects, my paths. If I had text, I'd be able to alter that. So this is not really, it's you know, the whole vector piece has been brought into InDesign. So there are two methods there, you know, whichever your intention is would be the method you would do. Now, one of the things I want you to look at is the quality difference between these two. So this one is pretty sharp, right? It's still the vector. It looks great. This one looks pretty bad. And that's the display performance that we've mentioned previously. There are 3 different ways that I can change this display performance. If you remember, if I want to change this on an individual graphic basis, I could right-click and go to display performance. Okay, I could also, with it selected, go under my object menu and locate display performance at the very, very bottom. Those are 2 methods for changing it on an individual basis. Now, if I went to my view menu and went to display performance, maybe wonder, why is there so many locations for this? The view menu is for all of the graphics in my document, all of the placed graphics. So if I choose high quality here, you can see now it looks the same. And in this case, this isn't a huge file, so changing it to high quality is not going to bog down InDesign too much. Now the last method is to go under Edit and at the very bottom locate my preferences, and I can find my display performance here. Now if I were to do this without any documents open, it will change the default for every time I make a graphic and place a graphic. So that's a way that I also can, if I have my document open, it will change every graphic in my document. Okay, so there's multiple ways to change this. Back in the day, we used to really worry about our display performance. Now our computers are very good, and so it's not as much of an issue as it once was. So, 2 methods to place vector graphics into InDesign.